Hey, everybody, this is James Pelton. I hope you are having a good Thursday. I'm here with Tyler from Alpha Shares. I had him on just last week, but we are here. We want to just do a quick update on Alpha Shares, what they're doing, how the mint is going. The minting is live now for whitelisted people, so we'll talk a little bit about that. We're here to answer questions. Well, not we. Tyler's here to answer questions. I'm here to just click the button that brings your questions up onto the screen. When I say it that way, it makes me feel kind of useless, but that's what I'm here to do. So if you have any questions about Alpha Shares, what they're doing, we'll start by just kind of briefly going over again what they're doing, just to remind you in case you didn't see the video from Friday. We spend a full hour going really deeply through the white paper and everything. So if you don't know anything about the project, maybe go check out that video. But if you have questions about the mint right now, or any last minute questions, any last minute hesitations, if you sign up for a whitelist and you're like, I'm not sure about it right now, here is the place and the time to ask these questions. Again, a lot of times people reach out to me for questions. I am not the man with the plan. That's Tyler. So that's why we have him here. So if you're watching this, please hit the like button. Really appreciate that. And yeah, comments, questions, things you want to just discuss through, bring those all up here. And again, I say this all the time, but Tyler, I know, would rather you ask hard questions and then invest than say, no, I'm not going to ask the hard questions and I'll just stay out. I know he would rather just get those questions. If you have the question, probably other people do as well. So we'll bring those up as we can. So yeah, welcome everybody who's here. Brian, Chance, Jonathan, appreciate you guys very much. Brian says, when are we going to grab some Runza and chat faith and crypto? Let's do it next week. Let's do it. If you're in Lincoln, let's make this happen. So Tyler, welcome back to the show. I'm not even going to have you introduce yourself because it's just Friday. Like, people can surely remember from Friday. Do you want to tell us, how has the mint been going? Let's start with, what is the Alpha Share? What is this new thing that you're doing? Let's start with that again, in case people aren't familiar.
Perfect. Yeah, I think I've got a good little recap, and then I'll just hop right into two. I can assume what your first question is going to be. How's the mint going? What do we think about it? And so I might as well just hop right into it. For those of you that might be popping in that don't know what Alpha Shares is and what Alpha Mining Co. is, well, Alpha Shares is a technology DeFi-driven company. We are a crypto Web3 company. We are established out of Paraguay. Our first flagship product is the marketplace, the Alpha Shares marketplace, and that's really what was our foray into expanding our community, into getting involved with NFTs and understanding how NFTs can really not just help achieve certain opportunities that otherwise wouldn't be available to us as individuals, but collectively minting an NFT collection, it really makes things possible. And so we went hard with that on the Alpha Shares marketplace, and we took that to heart with other opportunities. We're always looking to find other very impactful, high opportunity investments, ventures, whatever you want to call them. And so we actually decided to pursue Bitcoin mining at 3 cents per kilowatt hour down in Paraguay, as well as with this reserve round, something that is called antimony refining. So antimony is an ore. We refine it to what's called antimony trioxide through a very specific sublimation process. It's very unique, but it is and right here on the screen, it talks about kind of what it's used for. There's an FAQ below as well. Anyone that wants to know more about antimony trioxide, you can take a peek at this. There are also a couple of YouTube videos around exactly what that is with our project, actually interviewing the master behind it, who is our co-founder, Bert. So if you guys want to find out more about that, please, I highly recommend that you do. But this is what the opportunity is. And so the mint went live on Tuesday. We had the mint, we had the initial phase of the mint be only whitelist only, and we had been collecting whitelist addresses for about 2.5, 3 weeks. We initially went out and wanted to make sure that we took care of our partner projects, the influencers that have been, with us for a year, if not more for some of them, the communities that we've been partnered up with for a while, and then the biggest supporters within our ecosystem. That was about 500 wallets. We had, more than, not each wallet was only going to mint one. So from what we had reserved with that whitelist, if everybody minted their allocation, we would have minted out. And so we wanted to give them 48 hours to achieve that. We can't expect everybody to mint every single NFT that they allocate to themselves. Maybe they're waiting to see how quickly is it going to mint out. Maybe funds had changed. We did have to push back the mint by 1 week because we were getting legal counsel and legal structure put in place so that by the time the mint occurred, we knew that we were very, very protected. That has since been completed, and so I could talk on that later as well. But we're happy. We're very happy with how the mint actually went. We are at, let's pull it up. Actually, I got the YouTube video up here. We're at 1,076 minted out of 3,000, so that's over a third. We're very happy about this because within the first 24 hours, we had about 640, 650. Well, it was a little over 600, and at this point, we had about 650 mints on top of the already 435 that were minted by our project, both Alpha Shares and Momentum. And so with just 500 wallets and only, if I actually look at how many minted, only 180 wallets that are currently holding the NFT. That means that we actually had less than half, just a little over a third of the wallets that were whitelisted actually minted. So rather than waiting on them, though, which could they mint out the rest of the collection? Sure. Are we going to wait for them to do so? Absolutely not. So what we're doing and what just went live today at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard, noon Eastern, is we open up the whitelist. So the whitelist is now expanded to about 3 times the size it was before. We've opened it up to anybody that holds an alpha token or any amount of alpha token, any amount of mass token, or one of our alpha pack wolf NFTs. So that's about 1,500 wallets now. People are submitting tickets, and we're going to, a couple times throughout the day, collect all those ticket submissions, add the whitelist. It'll be updated, and you can mint. That's going to be ongoing up until March 14th on Tuesday, where it will then go public. So we're doing everything that we can to stay on top of this, make sure that we mint out as quickly as possible. It's in everybody's best interest to get this done quickly so that we can start to deploy those funds. Last and final point before I toss it back to you is in just 124 mints, we're going to be hitting our first internal accounting milestone, which is 1,200 minted. And that means we can actually deploy capital to purchase the land, purchase the first 40-foot shipping container, and even purchase some miners. And so we're already, our co-founder Bert is traveling 3 hours over to our law firm, which is in a different city within Paraguay, to tidy up the final components around the Bitcoin mining side of things. And we're ready to go. So we're very, very excited that we're about to hit that milestone. We could start to deploy capital. So we're there. Nothing's stopping us now.
Okay, very cool. And actually, we got a lot of good questions coming in from the audience. So yeah, thank you, Scott. Thank you, everybody who's bringing up questions. I will pop those up here in a minute. One of the big questions that I keep getting, we answered it Friday, but let's just answer it again here. What happens if you don't mint out? I know that's sometimes that's people's fear is, oh, I don't know if I want to mint. What if they don't mint out and they've had bad experiences with NFTs in the past where, oh, now your funds are just kind of in limbo. Do you want to talk into that?
Sure. Well, I will say that it's 100% our focus as a team to mint out. We're very confident that we are going to mint out. It's not the same thing as, some sort of minting or an NFT collection that's based off of vanity or based off of, a group that you can get exclusive access to that can only really hit their roadmap items if they mint out. That's not us. So we have 2 different strategies that we're pursuing with this reserve round. One of them is Bitcoin mining. One of them is antimony refining. We're actually pretty much right there at being able to fully deploy capital to just one of those. So if that one produces a significant amount of capital, well, it'll self-fund us for the next. Would it take longer than if we raised all the capital initially with this first round? Yeah, it would take a little bit longer. But what I was getting at with hitting this first internal milestone of just 124 more minted, we're immediately able to kickstart operations, become a profitable company down in Paraguay. So nothing's really stopping us in terms of getting things kickstarted sooner than later. The sooner we mint out, the sooner we get them started. So we also, and I will add to that, before having this mint go live in the way that we've done it, we were actually going to pursue antimony trioxide completely privately. So reaching out to individuals with multiple 6 figures or projects that had multiple 6 figures. And we had actually had a significant amount of interest from a private sense, and the structure of return was quite a bit different. And so it's not as parallel applicable to the situation now. But I actually haven't even reached back out to those people yet. And so I'm now kickstarting conversations back with a few of those groups that they very well may end up just taking a substantial chunk of the remaining supply before it goes public. So we'll see. So they're still at this point, up until 2 hours ago, or about 4 hours ago now, only about 500 wallets were able to mint. So we're just now expanding this. We don't want to have an indicator of minting out be dependent on 500 wallets with only about 180 of them minting.
Yeah, nope, that's awesome. So yeah, we've got 15 questions so far. So this is
Let's do it.
good. I like it. I would like to know too if there's anyone in the audience who signed up for the whitelist and then decided not to mint. I would like to hear personally just you're not in trouble or anything, obviously, but just what's your hesitancy? Is it just a matter of getting funds into the right place? This is actually what you experience with a lot of like wait lists and things like that, is when it gets time to actually put the money into it, there's kind of a little bit of hesitancy, but would love to just hear what some of those hesitancies are. So cash flow opportunities says, I may miss this live stream. You can watch later for sure. Regarding antimony refining, what expertise does the team have to set up the factory or enter this venture? Challenges and risks.
It's a great question. And I will say that I was going to even bring it up earlier, but I didn't really want to because we're on a YouTube video with James Pelton right now. But Eric from Selected Investments did make a fantastic interview video with Bert. So he is our in-house specialist. He's the expert in this industry. He's done antimony refining as well as other industrial. As well as other industrial refining for many, many years. Specifically, antimony for about 5 or 6 years. He did it in Bolivia, but he actually got started in the antimony trioxide refining in Bolivia because he was out there doing consulting on a different refining plant. So he's been in the industrial refining operations for decades and has over 30 years experience in material science and industrial applications. So there's a lot more information too, where, you know, I could talk your ear off about it, but there's actually a full hour-long interview specifically with Bert and with John, our two co-founders that are living down in Paraguay. And he goes into all the details about exactly how the process works for the refining of antimony trioxide, potential risks, how we procure the different ore, what the supply chain is of how the ore gets from Bolivia to our facility, everything. So that should answer all of your questions.
Okay, very good. Love it. Next question we have, I'll try to fly through these as quickly as we can because as fast as we go through them, more are coming in. So that's great. I love it. Let's see. What's your plan when your hardware, your miners become outdated? Which funds will be used to replace hardware if needed?
So we have a 20% performance fee, and that is outlaid in the white paper. I did see that earlier today, there was someone that pointed out, I think it was either last night or earlier today, there's one section that lays out what our performance fee is, and that it's 20% of the income, the mined Bitcoin post expenses. Then we do classify, though, that as an expense if we were to associate how it ends up being distributed to NFTs. So the NFTs receive Bitcoin. The amount of Bitcoin that it receives is what we mine. There's then expenses, which are the variable expenses, security, maintenance, management, all of that. Then we take out our 20% performance fee, and then 100% of what's left over there, it goes and gets distributed as Bitcoin to the NFTs. And so we now have a 20% profit margin that is going to be used for team, but it's also going to be used for future expansion, upgradability, things of that nature. We also have plans to expand the operation in-house, as well as expanding, obviously, with our public round. We have multiple tiers coming out after this reserve round mints out, which will further increase capacity. As we increase capacity, our 20% margin is going to be making more and more, which allows us to reinvest and grow our own side of basically the company account so that the company remains profitable. So that's the plan.
Okay, very good. And which Bitcoin miners are you looking at running?
So it's laid out in the white paper. They are going to be the S19 XPs, 140 terahash versions. We have many different suppliers that have provided us with quotes where what you can really look at it as is each miner has its own hash rate. So it's typically in terahash, and it also has its power consumption. And so the efficiency of a miner is obviously what it can hash divided by what it costs to hash that. And so you could have something, for example, the 140 terahash S19, you can have the 140 terahash S19, but it could take twice the amount of power as something that's 100 terahash. And so that 100 terahash machine actually is more profitable because it costs less per hash. And so that's where you, though, have to then look at, okay, if we were to fill up a shipping container with the amount of 140 terahash models to meet the same demand as if we had 100 terahash models, well, you need about 30% more machines of the 100 terahash models to meet that same hash rate within that capacity. So you're also constrained by physical constraints of the size of the container and how many miners you want to put in. So we've decided that sweet spot are those new 140 terahash versions, in addition to K3 Cadena miners.
Okay, very good. And I wanted to kind of just show people a little bit, just a simple mining calculator, and just showing how the electricity cost. So if you have I think these are the right numbers for like for an S19 on what you guys are talking about. So 140 terahash, it uses about 3,000 watts. So if you have normal price electricity, 12 cents is pretty normal, like where I'm at. It's actually the machine's losing money. And then if you have 100 of these running, we'll say, you're not going to be making, see if the calculator can even do this, but you're going to be losing a lot of money a day. But then bring that electricity down to Paraguay costs, and all of a sudden it changes the numbers quite a bit. Just having that cheap electricity. So that is like the number one metric that people should be looking at when you're talking about mining is electricity costs. That's really the main thing that sets things apart from other things. And 3 cents is about the cheapest I've heard of anyone.
Well, that's the whole point. And just to touch on that, because I actually was just looking at this again this morning, because somebody brought it up to us about the tariffs. So within Paraguay, so the whole opportunity here is because Paraguay has such immensely cheap power cost. The reason being, which I've stated many times before, Paraguay houses the second world largest hydroelectric dam, and they actually produce so much electricity. 90% of the electricity they produce is exported. So they only keep and use 10% of their own energy. So it's so cheap there. It's so incredibly cheap. But I actually looked and I found today that Argentina, it's got very cheap power too. And it's not because of their hydroelectric, but they actually have other very unique sources of energy. And I was like, that seems interesting. And I started to look into it. Obviously, we have to look into every opportunity that comes our way. But then I ended up seeing that Argentina has a 50 to 70% tariff inbound tariff on anything that you are importing in with mining equipment. So it's the miners themselves, it's the actual electric components, so the cabling, the transformers. I'm assuming it would also take the actual 40-foot shipping container, 2040, whatever you're getting. And so because it's got a 50 to 70% tariff, even though their power cost might be fairly low, the tariff itself makes it almost impossible to set up miners there. And so with us, the fact that Paraguay, it has only between a 17 and 20% tariff import tax, which can be adjusted. And there are some ways that we are working with the government as well to see what's the scalability of this. They're also a growing country looking at reducing those tariffs. So there's a bill that was supposed to pass hopefully in December. It's going to be back on Congress's plate this coming holiday season, end of this year. If that passes, then it'll actually reduce the tariff significantly. So that's what we're so stoked about. Is it's not just even power costs, but also can you even set up miners there? And we got the best of both worlds.
Awesome. Love it. Scott says, what percentage of your NFT fundraise will go towards the crypto mining operation versus the antimony operation?
So we have put in our, it says it in the white paper, it's 1.5 million that's going to be going towards the Bitcoin mining operation. That's going to be the first 40-foot shipping container we have in the white paper about 305 miners. That's plus or minus, because depending on what Bitcoin does, Bitcoin's been going down in price, which is great because that means we get our miners for cheaper. So we might be able to fill out the entire container of 325 miners. So that's about 1.5 million. And then we're putting about 1.2 into Antimony. We obviously then have a bit of a margin for obvious reasons.
Yes. Nope. Totally agree. Vincent says, if I mint now, when do I start earning? When will the first Bitcoin come in?
So rewards do start to come in, we hope, in about 90 days post deployment of funds is when we're going to be able to get things up and running. It could be as soon as 60 days, but we're going to be conservative at 90. In the white paper, we actually say 90 to 120. It's the real world that we're dealing with. It's the first time that we're setting up a mining operation in Paraguay. We do have a lot of experience. We do have a lot of knowledge, spending the past 6-8 months researching this hard, making sure we're set up and good to go. But do we have a crystal ball? Do we know exactly when it's going to happen? We don't. And so that's also another reason for this initial mint, this reserve mint, is you get 5 times the return as a public plus access to antimony because you're a first mover. Being a first mover, though, means you're not going to have that immediate gratification. The public round won't come out until operations are already kickstarted, meaning when the public starts to sell, well, we hit certain milestones, we expand. We don't have to wait 60, 90 days. It's just however long it takes for the new equipment to come and get plugged in. So that's where, sure, the barrier to entry in the public is less, the timeline is less, but your rewards are also less.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, next question. Yeah, they keep flying in. So appreciate you guys. You guys make my job so easy. I appreciate you guys very much. What is the target amount of funding required to get the antimony mining off the ground? We kind of already talked a little bit about this, but what is there a certain number where you wouldn't go into the antimony or something like that?
Um, that is something that is more of an internal discussion. I don't think, I have some numbers in my head. We've all ran the numbers. We're very familiar with the numbers of both operations and kind of what's necessary. With antimony and really any manufacturing or industrial operation, though, there's so many different costs. So, just the land is one. We're going to be purchasing that regardless. So that's going to happen. That's actually one of the first purchases that will happen in the next 124 minutes. So when we get to 1200, that's going to be able to get us the land, set up security, and get the initial poured concrete for the first shipping container and that container ordered. So that is going to be, it's very modular for both the Bitcoin mining, because once that's set up, we can just start filling it with miners. It could be one miner or it could be 300. It just depends on what we can afford at that point. We obviously want to get operations going. The sooner they get going, the more incentivizing it is. But we also want to get this minted out before we even get things going. And that's definitely our incentive as leadership. With the antimony, the same thing can be said, though. We could, in chunks, purchase the furnaces, purchase or construct the actual building that's going to have the roof over the certain areas, like the bagging tables or the shaker tables. There's a bunch of there are many different things, components that could be done over time. But that's an internal discussion that I can't really share exactly what that looks like, because again, our focus is minting this out as soon as possible.
Yep. Okay, gotcha. Randy says, just a comment here, not a question, so you can take a little break, but Hydro Whales, well-known mining project. Again, yeah, one of my personal favorite projects and teams, but their project bought over 150 NFTs, so that's super bullish. I guess there is a question here. Can you tell us more about that relationship or others like it?
Absolutely. So we obviously don't take mining in this space, proof of work mining, and other groups that are doing this as competition. Really, this is the backbone to blockchain technology. It's the backbone to the ledger. It's the backbone to people being able to send and authorize and verify transactions. So there's no competition when it comes to proof of work mining. What there is there's opportunity. And we have found that because we are establishing these operations in an area that has the highest level of opportunity when it comes to power cost, well, we want to share that with everyone. We want to share that in a way that's going to add value to us for the time and energy and effort we spent to set that opportunity up. But we also want to make sure that the people that we share that with, they're receiving a massive benefit. So we're already in talks with a ton of different miner groups, specifically including Hydro Whales. Very close with Sam. I talk to him almost every day now with everything we got going on. And as soon as possible, we'd love to host as many of their miners as possible. So hosting is a big deal for us, being able to leverage that very low power cost for the different partner projects we have, and them showing, the extreme level of confidence they have in us investing over 150 grand. That shows. And so we're very happy that they've decided to do that. And we're going to make sure that we support them the moment that we're able to intake their miners, and same with other projects like them. So not just Hydro Whales, but since you mentioned it, I'll say them, but there are a ton. I have a meeting tomorrow with another one, probably the second largest.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, and we got Brennan just said just FOMO'd and bought some alpha and submitted a ticket. So already got some people jumping on the whitelist. That's great.
I love it.
Let's see. It says it can every vlog says it can last 5 to 6 years max as Bitcoin had limited supply. Then there will be no utility, or maybe I'm wrong. Do you want to talk about how long you think the Bitcoin mining is going to last? You think, in 30 years we're going to still be having this Paraguay, or what's kind of long-term plans?
So it's actually mathematical. It's not even something that's a question in terms of how many. I'll even just Google it to get you the exact number. But Bitcoin mining is something that it's a mathematical equation. So the way that it works is you have the algorithm called the SHA 512 algorithm, which it's basically a very, very complicated mathematical equation that requires the dependency of hardware to process that equation. The more powerful the processing technology or hardware is, the more quickly it can process those transactions and hopefully earn Bitcoin for mining a block. That's what it's called. Those blocks, though, are specifically set to be released on a certain timetable. And so that's when you hear about a halving, is that means that the reward per block gets halved, and that's every 4 years. With the fact that it's been a mathematical determination since Bitcoin was launched, we can see that the last Bitcoin will be mined right around 2000 or 2140, the year 2140. So we have over 117 years left of mining Bitcoin. Every 4 years, it does cut the reward in half. But the really cool thing about that with us is that over time, you're going to find that because the reward is getting cut in half, well, that typically results in Bitcoin becoming higher priced because it's more scarce. It can't be found as often in a year. And so that typically offsets the negative impact of the profitability of mining because instead of Bitcoin being 20 grand, well, hopefully it's 40 or 60 or 80 or new all time highs of 100. And so that's where then the mining profitability is still there. But at the end of the day, and James said it best at the beginning when he even showed you guys, the number one indicator of success in mining is power cost. Us being at 3 cents per kilowatt hour, being at the lowest power cost that you could be, unless you're in a $1 billion industry in Norway, which really that's what it is, then we're going to be mining until the last people. Bitcoin could fall and completely cut in a tenth in price, which would result in 95% of the miners around the world having to turn off because they're not profitable. But that also means that there would be a 95% reduction in difficulty. And since we still stay online at the lowest power cost, well, that means that we will probably stay profitable all the way up until the last of the super institutionalized ones. And I don't know anybody else that from a public facing perspective can say that they're going to be as profitable or close to as profitable as $1 billion institutionalized mining operations. So
Yeah,
you can tell I'm excited.
Yeah. No, in some ways, if the price of Bitcoin goes down, it might actually, you guys might make more money because
Yep.
other people will have to turn off their miners a lot sooner than you guys will. And so then that difficulty will go way down. So, I mean, I'm sure you guys have run all the numbers of all the different scenarios, but that low power cost really gives you a huge edge on that. Let's see. Can I
Absolutely.
ask just personal question? Can I ask why did you guys look at the S19, the hydro ones, that just came out in October? And why'd you go with the S19 non-hydro ones instead of those?
So I personally, and I can even show you, my office is a little messy, but you can even see. So this is my computer.
Okay.
So I'm very familiar with hydro uh, cooling. So cooling with hydro technology, just pumps, water cooling pumps, all that fun stuff, and it works really well. And what happens with that? It means that your cooling point and the amount of airflow that you have to push through is not as much. And there's things called static pressure in terms of what you can actually, depending on the space constraints, how much airflow you can actually push through it. And you also get a massive reduction in sound. So because you don't have as many fans and as much airflow, it's very quiet. So my computer just sits there and it's silent as hell. But it also is so annoying, where to the point where, and this isn't specifically synonymous with Bitcoin mining and hydro miners there, but it's still a risk. 2 weeks ago, I was getting off at like 1 a.m, finally about to go to bed, and I just looked to my right, and suddenly my computer's just leaking. And a coupling luckily popped off on the bottom and started leaking water everywhere, and I had to spend the whole next day rebuilding the computer. Luckily, it didn't destroy any components, but I had to fully rebuild the whole loop so that it could cool. Because if the computer's on, it's not cooling, it's going to destroy the components, or it'll just turn it off because it gets too hot. The same thing can be said and applied towards anything that utilizes hydro cooling technology. It is a closed loop system, meaning it often will be able to sustain itself for a certain period of time where there are no issues. But if you get even one little piece of mineral inside of that closed loop and it's not perfectly, what's the word I'm trying to think of, sterile, then you can start growing little microorganisms. You might have to go and open up the loop so that you can put in like anti-bloom, anti-biodegrade, or anti-bio solutions so that algae and other stuff don't grow in there. It's just annoying. And so to us, that plus the fact that they're about 50 to 75% more expensive than the other miners with only about a 30 to 40% increase in hash rate, it actually is less profitable. So even buying those with the extra hassle, the power cost the same, it makes less money. So seems to be no point.
Okay.
So I really
Thanks.
want to explain it all. I want everyone to know everything, right?
Yeah.
And this is why we make the decision.
No, that's perfect. And yeah, and some of these questions, the education piece of it is huge. So yeah, there's no dumb questions. Don't feel stupid if you ask something. Part of this is the education. I wouldn't want you to invest in something you didn't understand. So that was something I was wondering is, hey, to me, hydro seems cool. That's not, something, no pun intended there, but so thanks for answering that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Kevin says funding issue for me, waiting on a refund. So yeah, then he'll be in. Do we have clients ready for the Antimony already?
Yes. So that's also spoke about in that interview with Bert. We've got a couple different companies that both specialize in purchasing antimony to refine it further. So when we produce antimony, we're going to be producing it to about 83% purity, and then it can go on and be sold to someone that further refines it from 83% to, let's say, 99%. That's a buyer, but we also, at 83% purity, there are many buyers that, or manufacturing facilities, industrial practices that use it at that concentration. And so we actually do have other industries out in Brazil and countries that are down in South America, close and nearby, easy to sell to, that yes, we are already in talks with them. Absolutely.
Okay. Say I buy an NFT now, I save all profits. Can I compound or buy more NFTs?
You could do whatever you wanted. So we'll see that when profits start to produce. I mean, who knows, or rewards, let's call them rewards and not profits.
Yes.
But whenever the rewards start to be claimable, or be airdropped, which that's something that I'll even talk about in a second here. I don't know if there's going to be NFTs available still. So could you use those to maybe buy in the secondary market? Absolutely. I don't know if there will be any available to mint at that point still, because we hope to get things kicking. Sure, if we're into the public round, I think that we will absolutely be having, the reserve should be producing by the time we get into the later tiers of the public. But a cool thing about this, and I will actually talk, if you want to go to the next question, we can, but there's something related to this that I'd like to actually touch on about claiming. Okay.
For sure.
So one question that we've got, and I think it might even come up in here, is claiming these NFTs on Ethereum. So claiming rewards. Ethereum obviously often has high gas costs. And so a lot of HydroWorld members as well, they were noticing, hey, I'm trying to claim, $10 in rewards and it's costing me $20 in gas. Like, what's the point? And so we understand that. And so there's a couple things here that we recently actually just changed today. Nothing that you guys would know about, but as a change on the back end where we're actually structuring and fully getting in place now the way to claim your rewards on a layer 2 rather than Ethereum itself. So either Arbitrum or Polygon, possibly both. And that's going to allow anybody to basically claim for cents on the dollar rather than dollars. What that also means is that we had a distribution contract tied to the NFT contract, which would basically say that if anyone went and sold their NFT that had a claimable balance, it would automatically claim that balance and then send the NFT. But that extra contract call actually made it more gas costly. So this change we made today, it actually means that now, starting just about an hour and a half ago, or about an hour ago, minting is cheaper and transferring NFTs is very, very cheap now. It was a little bit more expensive, about 50 to 70% more expensive than without that. Ethereum is just so incredibly expensive anyways. So we're very happy though now that you can claim on these other chains where it's far cheaper. If you had a reward of $20 in Bitcoin, you're going to claim $20 in Bitcoin. And I think that you reminded me about, hey, if I claim and I want to compound back in, I thought about, hey, yeah, well, let's say you're trying to claim $20, but it costs 10 in fees. I mean, now you only have 10 to compound back in. There's no point. We want to make sure that you guys aren't experiencing losses due to gas.
Okay. We appreciate that. No one wants to lose money to gas. That's the worst.
No.
How long is the kilowatt price locked in for? Is there any indication it may rise in the next few years? And we had a couple questions about this. Just, what if Paraguay, what if they raise the rates or something like that? Does that mess everything up?
So there's always risk associated with any, authority changing things on you, right? And so that's why it's, in our best interest, due diligence, to establish a really sound relationship with the Paraguayan government, with the power companies that we're going to be operating with, and making sure that we can lock in those rates. And so we're locking in our initial rate, I believe, at only 3 or 4 months, maybe 6, but that's because we're expanding it rapidly. So we know that this first capacity of the reserve round is going to bring us up to right around 2 megawatts. But once we get into the public round, or even hosting, whichever one comes first, we have to immediately increase that capacity. That's going to drop our power cost. But we're also pursuing establishing, like I said, those relationships. Bert, he's I don't know if he had the meeting yet or if it's going to be in the future, but he's meeting with the president of Paraguay. And so we're trying to do our best to make sure that the Paraguayan government, the power companies know we're down there to invest in their country, bring jobs down there as well, and make sure that we're seen as a benefit overall. So that should result in, less downtime, but I'm never going to say that there's no risk associated with that, because at the end of the day, the same as in the United States, if your power company at your house said, hey, instead of you paying 12 cents a kilowatt hour, we're going to charge you 15, you're like, well, I still have to live here. So you're going to pay it. And those are things that we obviously would very well showcase and let the community know. Last and final point I'll give is the dam, the largest dam in Paraguay, second largest in the world. that produces so much energy. Again, they export 90% of it. It was actually co-constructed, or at least co-funded, with Brazil. So it is still currently co-owned by Brazil and Paraguay. But I think by the end of this year, I'll have to remind myself of exactly when that contract ends. Paraguay will fully 100% own the dam. That means that their expense cost of financing, paying that financing expense to Brazil, will be gone, which, if we think about this from a traditional business perspective, that shouldn't mean that they would be increasing costs of power, because their margin is now quite a bit larger. Brazil, or Paraguay as a company, is making more money on their power. So why would they go and further increase power costs? They shouldn't. If anything, we might see a reduction, but even keeping it the same just means that Paraguay as a company, or country rather, making more money. So, and we're happy about that.
Awesome. Baz would like to know if the rewards are in Bitcoin, will it be sent to NFT holders in wrapped Bitcoin to accommodate MetaMask?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And so wrapped Bitcoin, if you guys don't know, wrapped Bitcoin is a fully collateralized one-to-one, if not over one-to-one, wrapped version of Bitcoin. So if you go to wrapped Bitcoin's homepage, you'll actually be able to see they've got a transparent ledger to show that they hold more Bitcoin than wrapped Bitcoin that they issue.
Okay, very good. GGO, can a dev make a calculator where you input current mass price and based on the singularity TVL, figure out if it's better to buy mass or owning an NFT in terms of earnings? What would you say to somebody who's trying to figure out, hey, should I get into mass or should I get one of these NFTs? What would you have any advice for them? Not financial advice, but
exactly. That's what I was gonna say.
Advice.
Yeah, no financial advice. What I can say though is that it's not as simple as you're kind of putting it there. So you could, if you took a snapshot of the singularity and of mass, the price of mass, what the current singularity size is, how much is staked, and what potentially the 395 NFTs that Momentum holds could produce to the singularity, sure, you could make close to a determination of what the singularity could pay out at $1,000 invested at that current moment. What you're not factoring in, though, is what it would be like if twice the amount of people end up purchasing mass and staking it. You're going to get diluted, and you're not going to be making the same reward. It's not counting the price of the NFT. If the NFT mints at $1,000, but we get through this whole mint and we get through the public round, well, the NFT should be based off just the principal value, the principal cost mint price of the public round, and what the reward offerings are on the reserve round. It should be worth at least 2 to 2.5 times. So if you put $1,000 into mass right now, would it also be worth 2 to 2.5 times? It could not. I don't know. And you don't know. And so it's kind of a fun thing that you can speculate upon it. No one's going to be able to give you an answer. Nobody's going to be able to put together a calculator. You could just kind of make assumptions.
Okay. Yeah. Hopefully that helps GGO point you in the right direction for you to think through that. Let's see, Scott, the last AMA you mentioned you would estimate 10% monthly returns based on current crypto prices. That assumed he's skeptical of that. Basically, we'll sum that up. Do you want to talk through how you guys came to those numbers and how confident you are in those numbers? I mean, obviously can't be 100%, but just want to talk through that.
Sure. So the 10% and everything, that monthly return, we did remove the verbiage around that per legal counsel from landing pages and whatnot. It still is easily deduced if you look at what we still currently have up. So even James, if you want to share your screen and go to mining.alphashares, I'll point out. So right there, yeah, perfect. So it before it showed what the potential rewards earnings would be per NFT. What we've done is, instead of showing that, because we don't want this to be seen as a promise of return at the end of the day, the $1,000 that you guys are putting into minting here, it will be used by our company to establish these amazing opportunities. These opportunities should produce a ton of value, and that value should be given back to you guys in the form of Bitcoin, claimable Bitcoin rewards. But to be able to showcase that, we really have to talk about what the company is going to make and what the company is going to be able to provide back to its holders in the form of rewards. So you can see here, once this is fully scaled up, so this is once we get through the reserve round and then get through the public round, and you can coincide this or reconcile this with the white paper. The white paper breaks down the different milestones, what different NFTs could potentially be seeing as a return or reward with Bitcoin throughout the different milestones. This is basically saying all milestones have been hit. The public round has sold out. The reserve round has sold out. If that's the case, then the protocol, the project, will be making about $193,680 per month in Bitcoin mined at a $22,000 Bitcoin price. That will change if Bitcoin goes up. It will change if Bitcoin goes down. The antimony refining, when that's fully spun up, again, that's only shared with the 3,000 reserve NFTs. That will produce roughly $114,000 per month to the company in rewards that we're able to distribute. Combining that total, you see that there's a combined total of about a little over 300,000 a month, and that then would be distributed evenly across 3,000 NFTs. So you can do the math there to see roughly what the rewards would be on your NFT, but it is a combination of both the Bitcoin mining and the antimony refining, and it's at a capacity of max capacity. So I believe that's going to be two 40-foot shipping containers and two 20-foot shipping containers. It's going to be roughly 7 or 8 megawatts. So that's where if we were just at the initial 140-foot shipping container of just S19 XP 140 terahashes, no, it wouldn't produce these. So this is once we get fully through the milestones and includes antimony.
Okay, very good. Thanks for clarifying that. Boring question alert. And there's no boring questions. This is, does the facility have backup generators in case of an outage?
It absolutely will. Yes. And they're going to be natural gas, more than likely.
Okay, very good. Funny Turo, good to see you, brother. By the way, again, I forget, bad YouTuber. Please hit like button. But yeah, Funny Turo already got his reserve NFT. Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's see. Yeah, we talked about the power in Paraguay. This looks bullish as they survived for 1 year, most of it in a bear market. Yeah, that's true. Honestly, Alpha Shares, the team being around for over a year, does put some faith into it. That's pretty. You're like 100 years old in normal years,
Practically.
making the market. Any concerns about corruption with public officials? Sometimes containers get held up in customs and never get released until very large bribes are paid.
So typically that stuff, I mean, it does happen kind of everywhere in South America. There's no denying that. But that's also where I was kind of touching on earlier. There's a big impetus behind the team that's down there, specifically Bert, to make sure that we connect ourselves and network ourselves well with the different government officials, the different power companies, and the different people that are going to be handling our equipment when it starts coming in. So that is a focus. That is something that I want you guys to know. We are heavily I don't want to say investigating, but just heavily keeping a focus on that, making sure that that's not going to be an issue. And with the way that we've set things up and with the current status and the network that we already have established down there, that should not be an issue at all.
Okay, good. And John says, I've aged 20 years since we started alpha nodes a year ago. Yeah, I think we all have. I can see the wrinkles have started to occur on me in this last year. So for sure. And Paul says, Mass or NFT, why not both? There you go. There's an option.
I like the way Paul thinks.
There's an option for you. Green Llama bought an NFT already. Does anyone have a spare $1,000? So no, that's great. Love it. The other question from Scott, and we might be wrapping up here on questions. If anyone has any last minute questions, this is the time to get those in. Scott says, instead of combining the antimony and the Bitcoin and the Kadena, why not do two separate NFTs? Why combine two vastly different projects into the same investment?
It's a good question. And really, it wasn't going to happen this way initially. Initially, the whole operation was going to be just Bitcoin mining. And we were going to raise the funds for this antimony operation completely privately. So talking again, like I said, to other project partners, treasury managers, but really mainly it was private investors. So it's people that I know through my real estate, through in real life, people that have, between 250 and 500 grand that they'd be willing to put in to start the operation. And we actually got pretty decent way down that road. But there is so much of a headache that comes along with the traditional way to do things versus 90 hours a week where we're dealing with crypto and Web3 and NFTs and the innate ability for an NFT contract to be an immutable binding contract. And so we knew that having NFTs be the fundraising mechanism for both operations, not only did it make sense, but because the way we're fundraising it with this initial round is a very exclusive, innately exclusive because of the $1,000 mint price. Not everyone can afford that. It just makes it by default exclusive. And so because of that, we want to make sure that we're giving back to you guys as much as possible. We have our, the ability to scale operations at some point internally with just alpha shares, as every company should, because every company's main goal should be to increase profitability internally. And so we originally were going to start the antimony at a much larger scale, but we knew that being able to raise 30% more than what we needed for Bitcoin, but being able to give it back to those really high impact purchasers, the people that have been purchasing the NFTs here. That's the way that we went and did it. And it just makes sense.
Okay,
Was that?
very cool. I had a kid come in, so just was saying hi.
Oh, gotcha.
Awesome. Yeah, no, this is great. I think that's all the questions that we have. Anybody have any last minute questions? Good to see you, Sam. Yugio says pay the bribes with Luna. Yeah, that's an option. You could definitely could probably do that. So calls to action. If you are on the whitelist, again, the mining page is you can mint now. I've minted a few myself. Again, I have my journey to, I've switched it from journey to 10K a day in passive income to 1K a day in stable passive income. And this is one that I'm putting up in the stable. I think this is something that will last. Bitcoin mining. I mean, when it comes to crypto, there's not much that's safer than Bitcoin, and there's not much that's safer than mining. So really, really appreciate that. And if you're not on the whitelist, what would you recommend to people who want to buy who are not on the whitelist right now?
Yeah, I'd say if you are a current member of our ecosystem, so if you hold Alpha Token, if you hold Mass, if you hold the Alpha Pack, well, by default, we're going to whitelist you. Again, the reason for this too is you need to submit a ticket. The reason for that is because there's about 1,500 wallets we could whitelist, and we could go spend a few $1,000s in lovely ETH gas fees to whitelist everyone. But as we noticed with the initial whitelist, not everyone's going to mint. So if you guys are interested in minting, we want to take care of you, especially if you're already a member of our ecosystem. So if you hold that, go submit a ticket. If not, stay tuned for Tuesday. Tuesday is going to be opened up to the public. We do have a massive series of a ton of different videos and social media content, influencer media coming out over the next few days to prep us for Tuesday. We might be minted out by then. We might not. Who knows? We're going to keep pushing. Nothing's stopping us. If I will give a call to action, though, for anyone that's listening here, I do want to extend an opportunity to anyone that might not already be a part of our ecosystem, which I love to see the comments. A lot of people already are, and I love to see that. If you're not, though, if you don't hold Alpha, if you don't hold Mass, if you don't hold an Alpha Pack Wolf, say you're here from the James Pelton AMA, pop in our Discord, submit a ticket. We'll whitelist you anyways. So obviously it's in our best interest, everybody's best interest to mint this out. We also understand not everybody has $1,000 to mint on an NFT. So as exclusive as we want this to be, which it is, again, it has that innate exclusivity. Not everyone can mint this. Not everybody also wants to give up funds, the opportunity cost of those funds for roughly 90 days. And so we're very transparent in exactly how this is going to go. I do want to give one final disclaimer that everything that we've said here today, not financial advice. We don't offer promises of return with what we're doing here, but what we do offer is the ability for you guys that are minting one of these NFTs to fractionally get involved in these real world proof of work and antimony trioxide refining operations. We're able to build and process and maintain these operations because of you guys. And because of that, we're allowing these NFTs to be seen as an access pass for you to claim rewards associated with the things that we do down in Paraguay. And those rewards will be paid out in Bitcoin. And that's because Bitcoin's not a security. And it's been stated to not be a security by Gary Gensler himself. So we're not a security. We're not a regulated offering. And I just want to state that to make sure that nobody is buying into this with the expectation of return. There can be a bit of excitement and hopefulness for earning Bitcoin rewards. And we're doing everything that we can to make that happen. But there is no expectation of receiving a certain amount of income. There is just the assumptions that we can make, which they are looking fantastic with the opportunity at hand here. So just want to say that because we really want to make sure we're perfect here. We spent the whole last week before mint and a lot of money, more than I want to say, making sure that we are perfectly golden on the legal front. So that's what I got in terms of disclaimer. I want to thank you, though, James, too, for having me up on the stage again today. And if you got any other questions for me, I'm happy to answer anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Funny Turo says James is in trouble for putting 10% returns. I can say whatever I want to say because I'm not on the team. So I can say I could put whatever I wanted to in there. But yeah, the team has to be very careful about how it's, especially in the US. Again, if they decided to, and again, everybody says, why don't projects dox and things like that? And the reason is because if you dox and you're in the United States, you have to be way, way, way more careful about how you're doing things. And that's the direction Alpha Shares is going, is they're saying, hey, we're going to be fully doxed. You know where we're at, you know who we are, but in return for that, we have to do things a certain way to be legal here in the US. And hopefully some of this gets cleared up here in the next few years with the SEC and everything.
Well, that's what it is. There's precedent right now established internationally. And so that enables us to, like, we literally have a signed memorandum. It's a many-page document from the legal firm, a law firm, stating we've reviewed everything, and per international securities laws, you're non-regulated. You're not a security. That precedent hasn't yet hit the United States. And so while we are doing absolutely everything that we can to not be seen as a regulated security under SEC United States law, paying out in Bitcoin, we still have to make that disclosure. And we still have to make sure that we're not going to denote and put in our terms of service or market that we're open for US customers until we get full confidence from those 3-letter agencies that we're good to go. And that is something that we're going to be pursuing. Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely. Well, hey, we'll go ahead and wrap up there. If you guys have more questions, hop into the Discord. I'm sure they would love. I'm sure there's people chomping at the bit right now in the Alpha Shares Discord, just waiting for people to ask questions. So hop in there, ask all your questions. Mint is going. I'll probably have a video out sometime next week about the public mint and just everything we talked about here today. AJ says, I attend their weekly AMAs. They answer each and every question. And yeah, I found that too. Great project and transparent team. So we'll go ahead and wrap up. Audience, thank you guys. Appreciate you very much. Please hit like on the way out. If you missed anything, I'll have the recording up right when we're done here. I'll try to get in chapters so you can skip around to the different questions that we talked about. And Tyler, always a pleasure to have you. Feel free to come back anytime you'd like.
Thank you, James. Always a pleasure being on the stage. I love that not only do we get to talk and have fun on here, but you also invest in the projects that we do, and I love to see that. So thank you for being a holder of Alpha Pack, being a holder of Alpha Mining Co., putting me in front of an awesome community here. Those of you in the community too, thank you for being here. If you guys want, we have our NFT conference here going live in just under an hour. So if you want to hear about some other cool NFT projects that we're pitching, ones that are on the marketplace, if you want to earn something, we give away $100 in AVAX every single conference as well. Love to see you guys there. But thank you for showing up today, giving us the time. Really appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you, everybody, and hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much.